I swore I had the campus thing under control. I had a routine. Wake up late, survive lectures, grab coffee, and occasionally pretend I was social enough to join a club without embarrassing myself. And then Mia Rhodes walked into Zayne's orbit. It started innocently enough, or at least it seemed innocent. Mia, all sunshine and perfect hair, breezed past me in the cafeteria with a grin that could blind small animals. And of course, Zayne, sitting at our usual table like he owned the universe, smiled back. That smile, the one he reserved only for people who mattered, made my stomach do the thing it shouldn't. I froze mid-step, tray in hand, and honestly considered dropping it on the floor. Not that I ever did dramatic things, okay, maybe a few times. "Hey, Zayne," Mia chirped, plopping down opposite him like she belonged there. And she did. Somehow she did. She always looked like she belonged anywhere she wanted. I gritted my teeth. "Hi," I muttered, trying to sound casual while my brain screamed, "Run, Celia, run." Zayne looked up, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at his lips. "Celia!" That one word, neutral as it was, made my pulse skip. I nodded. "Hi," I said again, with a little more force this time. And then, of course, they started talking, laughing, collaborating on some ridiculous group project I wasn't invited to. Watching them, my stomach twisted into knots I hadn't felt since high school prom nightmares. I tried to focus on my coffee. Didn't help. My eyes kept drifting back. She laughed, that sharp, confident laugh that made Zayne tilt his head, grin, lean in slightly. Nope. I couldn't do this. Not now. Not with feelings I wasn't ready to name. So, like a genius adult, I decided the best plan was to distance myself. Step 1, avoid Zayne at all costs. Step 2, look busy. Step 3, avoid Mia too if possible. It worked about, as well as a chocolate teapot. By the next class, Zayne was already watching me with that piercing gaze that made me want to confess everything and run away at the same time. "Celia," he said quietly as I passed. I froze, blinked. Hey. "Everything okay?" His voice carried that dangerous mix of concern and annoyance that I had never been able to resist. I nodded too quickly and continued walking. "Yeah, totally fine." Inside, my brain screamed, "You're totally not fine. You're a mess. She's a threat. He's going to notice. And maybe, just maybe, you love him." I shoved that thought down, deep, locked it in a box, buried the key. Little did I know, Zayne was already planning to dig it up himself. And that, I realized with a shiver, was only the beginning. People always said I was lucky, but I never felt lucky. Lucky wasn't losing your parents at 15 and suddenly waking up in someone else's house, with a family that wasn't yours and being told, "We'll take care of you." That's how it started with Zayne. After my parents died in a car accident, I thought the world had ended. Then Zayne's family, his father, his mother, and of course, Zayne himself, took me in. They didn't treat me like a charity case. They treated me like I belonged. And Zayne treated me like I'd been part of his life since forever. He wasn't just my guardian. He wasn't just my family. He was my anchor, my best friend. The one person who knew everything, my nightmares, my anger, my stupid habits, and never judged. That's why being in college with him now was complicated. He got into the same university, not because we planned it, of course, but because the world had a sense of irony. And here we were, navigating campus together like we'd been doing life since forever, except now with more complicated feelings I was only just starting to notice. And then Mia Rhodes happened. I first saw her in the library. She was radiant, confident, all teeth and laughter and energy. And she was leaning over Zayne's shoulder, pointing at something in his textbook. He was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that made my chest hurt. I froze, pretending to search the shelves for a book I didn't need. My stomach twisted. Maybe he likes her. The thought was absurd, impossible, and yet, here it was, crawling under my skin. I couldn't watch them anymore. I turned sharply, hiding behind the shelves, forcing my breath to slow. And then, as if the universe hated me, I caught sight of them in the next lecture hall, Mia sitting next to Zayne, elbow brushing his, whispering something that made him chuckle. I couldn't take it. Zayne, of course, noticed me. He always did. I could feel his eyes before I even turned around. And of course, he got up, making his way toward the empty seat next to me, like he always saved the perfect spot for me. Except I wasn't there. I'd turned, slipping out of the classroom like a shadow. I typed quickly on my phone, pretending to be sick. "Hey, I won't make it to class. Feeling sick. See you later." And just like that, I ran. Not from the lecture, but from the fear, the jealousy, the feelings I wasn't ready to name. Because loving Zayne was dangerous. Loving Zayne when he looked at other girls like that, smiling, laughing, giving them his full attention, was a kind of torture I wasn't sure I could survive. And I couldn't. Not yet. Later, sitting alone in my dorm, I remembered the nights we'd stayed up studying together back in high school, the times he'd dragged me through his family's ridiculous board games, the way he'd always insisted on walking me home, no matter the hour, the way his hand had accidentally brushed mine 100 times, and how I'd convinced myself it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. And now, Mia Rhodes was a constant reminder that maybe, just maybe, Zayne had been waiting for someone else all along. I scrolled through my phone, staring at his last message, "See you in class," and felt a pang of something sharp in my chest, something that wasn't just jealousy. It was heartbreak. And I hadn't even admitted to myself that I loved him yet. I had made a plan, a solid, unshakable, genius-level plan. Step 1, distance myself from Zayne Carter. Step 2, don't get involved in any of his stupid competitions or late-night library marathons. Step 3, pretend Mia Rhodes didn't make me feel like my chest was going to explode every time she smiled at him. Easy, totally doable. Except, of course, Zayne Carter didn't do easy. The moment I stepped onto campus that morning, he appeared like some kind of guardian angel crossed with a hurricane. "Celia." His voice, low, firm, impossibly commanding, made me jump. I turned, and he was already walking toward me, that look on his face that meant he had some plan I was about to be dragged into. I tried to smile politely. "Morning, Zayne." He didn't smile back, not like usual. Instead, he grabbed my arm gently, or so he claimed, and steered me aside as a group of students nearly ran into me. "Careful." His eyes, sharp and unreadable, flicked toward me and then back. "Don't get lost in the crowd." I froze. "I'm not lost." "You can't walk alone around here," he said, his grip firm enough to make my pulse thrum. "Not if I'm nearby." And just like that, my entire plan crumbled. Because I'd always known Zayne was protective. But this was intense. He wasn't just looking out for me. He was making sure the world stayed far away, that no one got too close, that I didn't breathe the same air as anyone but him. I shook my head, trying to convince myself. He treats me like a little sister, like always. Except when he held my arm to guide me through campus, I couldn't ignore the heat in his eyes. The way he leaned just slightly closer than necessary. The subtle brush of his hand when he steadied me. "Celia," his voice broke through my thoughts. "I'm fine," I said quickly, stepping back, trying to reclaim the 6 inches of personal space he refused to give. He raised an eyebrow. "You're running away from me again." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not, I just have classes, Zayne, lots of classes." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Right." And then, impossibly close, he lowered his voice. "Try doing that again, I dare you." My stomach twisted. I blinked at him. "Excuse me." He let go of my arm, but leaned in just enough for me to feel the heat radiating from him. "Avoid me, distance yourself from me, or act like you don't care. And I swear, Celia, I will drag you back whether you like it or not." I opened my mouth to reply, to argue, to deny, to pretend I was totally calm. But nothing came out. Because deep down, I knew I couldn't escape him. Not physically, not emotionally, and certainly not from the way my heart thudded every time he was this close. And Zayne, he probably knew it. He smirked faintly, that unreadable, intense expression he always had, then straightened. Classes, huh? Come on, I'll walk you to the library. You're clearly too distracted to manage on your own. I groaned inwardly. Step 1 of my plan, distance myself, had officially failed. Step 2, don't get involved, was already crumbling. And step 3, pretend I didn't care, was laughable. Because Zayne Carter was standing there, tall, intense, infuriatingly watchful, and I was already falling. Again, I should have known better than to think Mia Rhodes would be subtle. I saw her first in the courtyard, leaning casually against the railing, her hair catching the sunlight just so, flashing that infuriating grin at Zayne like she owned the place. And he laughed. Laughed, I swear, at something she said that probably wasn't even funny. I bit my lip, gripping my coffee cup so hard it nearly shattered. Breathe, Celia. It's just a friend. Just a very distracting friend. Hey, Zayne, Mia called out, waving like they were lifelong pen pals. Then she tilted her head, that ridiculous playful glint in her eyes. Save me a seat, will you? Front row's obviously better with the best partner. Front row, best partner. My stomach sank. She's flirting, openly, right in front of me. Zayne's dark eyes flicked to me as if sensing my presence. And yes, I was hiding behind a tree like a lunatic, but he always found me. Always. Celia, he said, voice low but sharp, a smirk tugging at his lips. You're stalking me again, aren't you? I narrowed my eyes. I am not. Sure, he said, sliding effortlessly toward me, his arm brushing mine as if that casual touch wasn't enough to make my heart go haywire. And watching me flirt with Mia doesn't bother you at all. I choked on my coffee. What? I don't, you're not, we're not, I mean, she's annoying. He leaned closer, that damn intense gaze locking onto mine. You're jealous. No, I am not. Yes, you are. His hand grazed my arm again, this time a deliberate touch. And honestly, he smirked wickedly, it's cute, but dangerous. Try doing that again, avoiding me, pretending you don't care, I dare you. I froze, dare me, my pulse raced. Zayne, Later, he said, releasing my arm with a teasing grin before turning to Mia, who was twirling a pen and looking far too smug. Mia leaned toward him, whispering something, laughing softly. Zayne laughed, the warm, too-close laugh that had always belonged to me. I shoved my hands in my pockets and backed away. I need coffee, I muttered to myself, fleeing like a fool. Later that day, in the library, I tried to focus on my notes. Focus, Celia. Focus on literally anything but them. Mia flitted around Zayne like a hummingbird, hovering, teasing, competing for his attention. She nudged him playfully, tossed out challenges like he was the prize. And Zayne, he didn't just play along. He leaned in, whispered back, smirked, grinned, and every time I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw a book at her. I wanted to throw myself at him. None of those options were socially acceptable or safe for my dignity. Instead, I did the most adult thing possible. I left. I shot him a quick message on my phone. Sick today, won't make it to class, sorry. It felt like a betrayal, like running away from a battlefield I was too weak to fight. And maybe it was. By the next lecture, I was hiding in the back, hoping he wouldn't notice me. But Zayne Carter, of course, did. He did. He always did. He strode in, eyes scanning, then stopped mid-step as if realizing something. And then my heart sank. He sat next to Mia, saving the perfect seat for her, leaning in close, whispering, laughing. I could barely breathe. And yet, as much as I wanted to hate him, I wanted him closer. Because Zayne Carter wasn't just intense. He was Zayne Carter. And no amount of flirting, teasing, or avoidance would ever keep me away. I should have known better than to show up at the campus cafe during peak hours. Mia Rhodes was already there, perched on a high stool like she owned the place, flipping through a textbook and smiling at anyone who glanced her way. And of course, Zayne was sitting across from her, leaning back in that effortless, infuriating way that made every head in the room turn, including mine. My chest tightened. Why does he let her sit like that? Why is he laughing at her jokes? Why is my stomach, stop it, Celia? I ducked behind a table, trying to pretend I was buried in my own books. But of course, Zayne didn't just ignore me. He spotted me, always. And then he smirked, like he knew exactly how furious I was. "Celia," he called, his voice carrying across the cafe. My stomach lurched. "Over here." I blinked. Nope, not going, not happening. He stood and strode toward me, casual, confident, smirking that damn infuriating smirk. And then, my heart might have stopped. He slid into the seat next to me, brushing my hand with his as he leaned close. Mia's eyes narrowed. I didn't even notice because my brain was screaming, why is he doing this? Is he trying to make her jealous? Or me? Or both? "Cute table," Zayne said, low and teasing, as if the cafe were ours and everyone else just happened to be a prop. I glared. "You're showing off." "Am I?" He gave me a lazy smile, thumb brushing mine again. "Maybe I just like holding your hand in public. You okay with that?" I froze, heat spread across my face. "Zayne, stop it. People are starring." He leaned closer, whispering, "Good. Let them stare, I like it." I wanted to shove him away. Instead, I stumbled back slightly, and karma apparently has a sense of humor, tripped over my own bag. My coffee sloshed dangerously, my books tumbled toward the floor, and I nearly dropped my laptop. "Celia," Zayne shouted, his intense, commanding voice cutting through my panic. He leapt up, grabbing my arm and pulling me back just in time. His other hand caught the falling laptop like it weighed nothing. I gaped at him, breathless. Thanks." "No," he said sharply, his eyes locking onto mine with that dangerous, intense stare. "You cannot do that, not when I'm nearby." I flustered, cheeks burning. "I'm fine, really." He smirked, still holding my hand lightly. "Sure you are, and maybe next time try not falling in public while I'm around. You know, for my dignity." I wanted to glare, but I couldn't. The way he was looking at me, intense, protective, teasing, it made every thought I'd tried to lock away explode inside me. And I could tell Mia noticed too. She was fuming, cross-armed and glaring at the two of us like she wanted to start a war right then and there. I, on the other hand, wanted to vanish. Because Zayne Carter didn't just save me. He made sure I felt every ounce of his attention, his care, his intensity. And I hated that I loved every second of it. I had underestimated college events. Again. The annual campus cultural fest had turned into a war zone of glitter, banners, and overenthusiastic students. Somehow, Zayne and I ended up forced onto the same team for the debate performance challenge, while Mia Rhodes was on the rival squad, grinning like she'd been born to win. My stomach churned. "Focus," Zayne muttered, brushing past me with that infuriatingly confident smirk. His hand briefly grazed mine as he leaned in casual, or so he claimed, but it sent sparks shooting straight to my brain. "I am focused," I hissed, trying not to look flustered. "Cute, but not believable," he said, looping an arm around my waist to guide me past a pile of props that somehow teetered on the brink of collapse. I wanted to glare. Instead, I nearly tripped on a chair and he caught me mid-stumble, his hand firm on my forearm. "Careful," he muttered, eyes dark and intense. "I can't always save you, you know." "Good," I said, flustered. "I don't need saving." "Cute, but not true," he teased, grinning down at me. And of course, Mia noticed. She rolled her eyes so hard I was almost impressed and started pulling ahead with her team, clearly trying to show off in front of Zayne. I clenched my fists, trying to ignore the heat in my chest. Hours of chaotic running, debating, performing ridiculous skits, and dodging flying props later, our team won barely. I was panting, heart hammering not just from the chaos, but from being forced so close to Zayne, who had spent half the time gripping my arm, leaning close, whispering pointers that made me feel like he was invading my thoughts. "I think you did fine," he said casually, brushing some imaginary dust off my sleeve. "Thanks," I muttered, cheeks burning. And then the chaos hit again. The library doors slammed shut. What happened?" I asked, looking around. The clock showed the library closed hours ago. We'd been so wrapped up in preparations that no one had noticed. Zayne smirked, leaning casually against a table. Looks like it's just you and me now. I froze. Just what? Just us, he said, voice low and teasing. He dropped his bag onto the table, stretching his arms. Guess we'll have to entertain ourselves until someone comes to rescue us. I groaned. Zayne, this is ridiculous. Yeah, he said, crouching to pull out a stack of books for us to sort. But you're here, so I'll survive. The night stretched long and ridiculous. We argued over project notes, swapped ideas, and debated every tiny detail, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes seriously. And every time I reached for a book, he was there, guiding my hand, brushing my arm accidentally, his intense eyes always watching. Celia, that's not the right reference, he said softly, leaning over my shoulder. His chest pressed slightly against mine, my brain short-circuited. I can look it up myself, you know, I snapped, trying to regain composure. He smirked. Sure, but then I wouldn't get to see that dramatic glare you make. It's distracting. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I flushed bright red and muttered under my breath. You're impossible. And yet, here you are, he said, leaning even closer, hand brushing mine as he reached for a book on the shelf. I bit my lip, trying to ignore the lightning that shot through me. Hours passed, coffee cups were knocked over, notes scattered, laptops beeped and blinked, and still Zayne didn't stop. At one point, we were sitting side by side on the floor, organizing papers. He stretched out, arm brushing mine, and my breath hitched when he casually draped his other arm over my shoulder. See, comfortable, he murmured. I stiffened. I'm fine, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Sure, he said, that smirk creeping back. If by fine you mean flustered, panicking, and completely aware of my presence. I glared, but it came out more like a whine. I am not. He corrected softly, leaning so close our faces were almost inches apart. And I'm enjoying every second of it. I wanted to pull away, but at the same time, I didn't. The library was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock and the occasional shuffle of papers. Mia wasn't there, which made it even worse. No distractions, no excuses. Just him, impossibly close, impossibly teasing, impossibly Zayne. By the time someone finally came to unlock the doors hours later, I realized two things. One, my feelings for Zayne were far more intense than I'd ever admitted to myself. Two, he had no idea how close he was to completely unraveling me. And judging by the teasing glint in his eyes, he might have known exactly what he was doing. The campus club meeting was supposed to be simple, organize flyers, coordinate events, and maybe, if we were lucky, we survive Mia Rhodes. Spoiler, it did not go as planned. Mia strolled in, radiant and infuriating, flashing that grin that made my stomach twist. She immediately zeroed in on Zayne, leaning over him, whispering something that made him laugh like he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. I froze. She's flirting, openly, in front of me. I tried to focus on organizing the chairs, pretending I didn't notice her elbow brushing his arm, her hand casually resting near his. My jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. Then he noticed me. Of course he noticed me. Zayne always noticed me. Celia, he said, voice low but carrying that intensity that made my heart thud. Come here for a second. I turned my back, pretending to adjust the tables, and muttered under my breath. I'm not going near him. Cute, he said, smirking, stepping closer, then dragging me. Real cute. I shouted at him and said, stop calling me cute, idiot. Mia's eyes narrowed at the obvious tension, and I wanted to disappear. But then Zayne did the impossible. He leaned in, brushing my arm accidentally on purpose as he helped me move some chairs, his touch lingering just a heartbeat too long. Stop looking so jealous, he murmured, voice teasing but low, close enough that I could feel it vibrating straight through me. I'm not jealous, I snapped, heart racing. Sure, he said, smirking like he already knew the truth. Then why is your face bright red, and why are you breathing like you just ran a mile? I flailed mentally, wishing I could disappear, melt into the floor, or maybe shove him off a cliff. "You're impossible." "And yet, here you are," he countered, stepping closer, brushing his hand against mine again as he adjusted the banner on the wall. I wanted to scream, or cry, or punch him. Instead, I did the most adult thing possible. I stomped off, muttering something about checking on the supplies, and bolted down the hallway. He followed. Of course he followed. "Celia," he called, grabbing my wrist lightly as I turned a corner. His grip was firm, intentional, protective. "Stop, right there." I spun to glare at him. "Let go, you're..." "You're what?" he asked, voice low and intense, almost growling. "Jealous." I froze, my heart hammered in my chest. I'm not." "You are." He leaned closer, his dark eyes catching mine, and don't you dare deny it. "Not to me, not ever." I opened my mouth, but no words came. His hand was still on my wrist. You're impossible," I whispered, barely able to breathe. "I could say the same," he said, his voice dropping even lower. "And judging by that glare, you kind of like it." Heat flooded my cheeks. He smirked, letting his hand slide just a bit closer, grazing mine. "We're going to talk about this, privately." "I don't." "SHH." His finger pressed to my lips in mock warning, though his smirk never left. "Later, but you cannot run from me now." I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body screaming, my mind spinning with frustration, desire, and an ache I could no longer deny. Mia's laughter echoed faintly down the hallway, oblivious to the storm raging between us, but Zayne didn't care. He wasn't even slightly letting go of my wrist. And I realized with shocking clarity, there was no escaping him, not in public, not in private, not ever. Because Zayne Carter didn't just see me. He owned my attention, my heart, my every thought. I couldn't take it anymore. Every glance, every teasing touch, every smirk that sent fire straight through me, it was too much. I felt like I was unraveling, and the thought of Zayne smiling, holding my hand, leaning close, all while Mia Rhodes hovered nearby, I couldn't breathe. I spun on him, standing in the quiet hallway outside the club room, hands pressed to my hips, chest pounding. "Stop playing this game, Zayne." He blinked at me, surprised for the first time in hours. His smirk softened into something I didn't recognize, serious, intent, raw. "Game?" he asked, voice low, carefully controlled. "Yes, this," I gestured wildly, my voice trembling. "The teasing, the hand-holding, the everything. Are you trying to make Mia jealous by using me? Or what do you even want?" He hesitated, jaw tightening, and I felt my chest tighten too. Then he finally spoke, quieter now. "Celia, Mia, I don't care about her. Not like that, "Then tell me," I burst out, my voice cracking. "Stop dancing around me, stop pretending like I don't matter." He opened his mouth, trying to form words, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. My hands trembled, tears threatening to spill. I can't take this anymore," I blurted, heart hammering, voice barely above a whisper. "I love you, Zayne. I've always loved you since we were kids, since my parents died. And I've tried to stop it, I've tried to hide it, but I can't, I swallowed hard, choking on my words, and finally, I love you." Silence. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Zayne's eyes were wide, dark, and unblinking, shock, disbelief, something raw flickering in them. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw tightened. His hand hovered in the air, unsure if he should reach for mine or say something. "I see, Celia," he started, voice low and broken, like he had so much to say but no words could escape. And then, fate, timing, and the universe all conspiring against me. Mia's laugh echoed from the end of the hallway. "Celia, Zayne, there you are." My chest dropped, my heart twisted. I looked at Zayne, his expression froze, caught between shock and something else, and panic surged through me. I couldn't stay. I couldn't face Mia seeing this. I need to go," I stammered. I turned on my heel and ran. My legs carried me as fast as they could, tears stinging my eyes. Every step felt like I was ripping my heart out. I didn't dare look back. For the next 5 days, I avoided him completely. Everywhere I went, I pretended to be busy. I skipped classes he was in, avoided the cafeteria, even ignored his texts. Every time I thought about that hallway, the confession, the look in his eyes, the words he hadn't said, my chest ached unbearably. I convinced myself I had been rejected. He hadn't said he loved me. He hadn't confessed. Mia had seen us. And that was enough to make me believe. I had lost him before anything could even start. Sleep had stopped visiting me weeks ago. Or perhaps it had been months. My nights were long, stretching endlessly, haunted by thoughts I couldn't silence. Thoughts of him. Zayne. His smile, his smirk, the way his hand brushed against mine in a casual gesture that made my chest ache. My mind replayed every word, every touch, every look, over and over until exhaustion settled deep in my bones. I had tried to avoid him, thinking I had been rejected, thinking that the confession I had spilled in that hallway had shattered everything between us. Mia had appeared, radiant and smiling at the worst possible moment, and I had fled, leaving him to the silence that had filled my chest ever since. But running hadn't helped. It hadn't silenced my heart. If anything, it had made everything worse. I hadn't eaten properly in days. Food tasted bland or bitter. My body ached constantly. My head throbbed. And every time my phone buzzed with his name, panic coiled in my stomach. Every time I imagined his voice or the way he had looked at me in shock that night, I felt both relief and agony, relief that he didn't like Mia, and agony because he hadn't said what I needed to hear. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, and I couldn't sleep. Yet somehow I dragged myself to class that morning. I had to pretend I was normal. I had to keep going. But my body refused. Halfway through the lecture, my vision blurred. Words on the board seemed to float. The voices of my classmates became distant echoes. My chest tightened. My knees buckled. I tried to steady myself, clutching the edge of the desk, but it was no use. The next thing I knew, darkness swallowed me. I woke to the warmth of sunlight spilling across my face and the faint scent of something familiar, his cologne. My eyes fluttered open, and the first thing I saw was him. Zayne, sitting on the edge of the bed, his hand lightly resting over mine, thumb brushing my skin as though he'd never let go. Celia, his voice was low, careful, trembling with something I couldn't place at first. Relief, fear, pain, all of it somehow. I blinked, trying to focus. My body ached and my head throbbed, but I felt safe, safer than I had in weeks. "You scared me," he said softly. "Do you even know how worried I've been?" I'm fine," I murmured weakly, though the lie tasted bitter in my mouth. "Don't lie to me," he said sharply, yet his hand tightened around mine in a protective gesture that made my chest tighten. "I can see it, Celia. I can see everything you've been hiding. Skipping meals, avoiding classes, not sleeping. You're falling apart, and for what? Because of me. Because of what you think." I flinched at his words, guilt and shame flooding me. I thought you didn't feel the same," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I thought I had been rejected." Zayne's eyes softened, dark intensity giving way to something raw, vulnerable. "Rejected," he repeated, his voice shaking slightly. "You think I'd ever reject you, after everything?" I couldn't look at him. I felt tears prick my eyes unbidden. You didn't say anything. Not that night, you did." My voice broke. "You didn't say anything about us." His hand moved, cupping my cheek gently. "Celia," his voice dropped to a whisper, so low it made my heart stutter. I love you. I've always loved you. Since the day you came into my life, since your parents." His throat tightened, eyes glistening with something I couldn't name. "I promised myself I'd always be here, always." My breath caught in my throat. His fingers trembled slightly against my skin. Every word, every syllable, felt like it was carving itself into my heart. You've always loved me," I whispered, disbelieving, trembling. "But you never said." "I couldn't," he said, shaking his head, his intense gaze holding mine. "I couldn't risk losing you. I couldn't see you hurt. I thought I could wait until you realized it yourself, until you saw me for what I've always been." Tears streamed down my face now, hot, unrelenting. "Zayne, I've loved you my whole life too, since I was a child. Since my parents died. I thought it was wrong or selfish, or I choked on my words, my voice barely audible. I can't do this without knowing you feel the same. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, his hands gently holding both sides of my face, thumb brushing away my tears. Celia, don't you see? His voice was fierce, trembling with intensity. I have always felt the same. Every day, every moment I've loved you, and watching you distance yourself, thinking I liked someone else, I was dying inside. You have no idea how terrified I've been of losing you. The ache in my chest became unbearable. My lips trembled. My hands clutched his arms, desperate for his warmth, his presence, the undeniable proof that he was real and that he loved me. Zayne, I whispered. I was so scared. I know, he said softly, pressing his forehead against mine. I know, but no more games, no more hiding. You're mine, Celia, always have been, always will be. I gasped, my heart hammering, and threw my arms around him, holding on like my life depended on it. I can't believe, I thought you did. I'll never let you think that again, he murmured, voice husky, lips brushing my temple. I'll never let you doubt me. I closed my eyes, finally letting the tears fall freely, letting the ache dissipate into his arms. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe, whole, loved. But even as we clung to each other, my heart still pounding, my mind still racing, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity: I would never take him for granted again. And he would never let me go. The morning sun spilled through the dorm window, soft and golden, but it did nothing to wake me. I didn't want to wake. I didn't want to leave the warmth of his arms, the steady weight of his presence, the slow, steady rhythm of his heartbeat against mine. Zayne's fingers were laced with mine, his thumb tracing idle, comforting circles across my skin. I tilted my head back, letting the peace wash over me, the peace I hadn't known in years. Years of sleepless nights, panic, and ache, and now, finally, it was gone. I could get used to this, he murmured, voice husky from sleep, leaning just enough to press his forehead against mine. His dark hair brushed my cheek, soft, warm, and utterly familiar. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Me too, I whispered. It feels like forever that I've waited for this. Forever, he smiled, teasing but tender, the way he always had that made my stomach flutter even now. Try decades. My heart skipped. Decades. Yes, his lips brushed against my temple, then the side of my face. Since childhood, Celia, you've been mine long before we realized it. I closed my eyes, leaning into him. I could feel it, the intensity of his love, the way it wrapped around me, protective and unshakable. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly let go, to accept that all those years of fear, of guilt, of avoiding him had been unnecessary. The day passed in a blur of laughter and quiet tenderness. We walked together across campus, hand in hand, fingers interlaced like we'd always belonged that way. Zayne's protective presence was constant but no longer suffocating. It was grounding, a shield that made me feel safe. Mia Rhodes still lingered nearby, present, polite, but clearly cautious. Zayne's intensity toward me was unmistakable, a quiet, blazing statement that no one would dare interfere. Watching him subtly keep her at a distance, I realized how much he truly cared. And yet, it wasn't angry or possessive. It was deliberate calm, a silent promise. You are mine, and I will not let anything hurt you. That evening, in the quiet of my dorm, we finally had a moment alone. No classes, no friends, no distractions, just us. Zayne pulled me close, his hands framing my face as he searched my eyes. Celia, he said softly, almost trembling. You know I love you, right? I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. The truth of it was still too heavy to fully process. I know, I whispered. I've always known, and I love you too. A small, almost feral smile curved his lips. Do you have any idea what it did to me, thinking you were slipping away, thinking I might have lost you? His voice dropped, low and intense. Celia, I've loved you every single day of your life, and the thought of not being there for you, of not being the one you turn to, I can't bear it. I trembled, heart pounding in my chest. I thought you didn't, I thought you. I've always been here, he interrupted, voice steady, eyes dark and glowing with intensity. Even when you ran, even when you avoided me, I've always been here. And I always will be. You're mine, Celia, always have been, always will be. The ache I'd carried for weeks, the sleepless nights, the fear, the longing, all of it crashed over me. I couldn't stop myself anymore. I leaned in, my lips finding his in a tentative, searching kiss, trembling at the heat, the intensity, the safety, and the love that poured from him. Zayne froze for a heartbeat, then deepened the kiss, one hand cradling my face, the other holding me close, grounding me as if he would never let me go. My heart threatened to burst. Every fear, every worry, every lonely night melted away in the heat of it. When we finally pulled back, gasping slightly, our foreheads pressed together, I whispered, "I've loved you forever, I've always loved you." His lips curved into the softest, most tender smile I had ever seen. "And I've loved you longer, Celia, longer than you can imagine." We stayed like that for a long moment, hearts beating together, foreheads pressed, hands entwined. The world outside faded to nothing. No Mia, no rumors, no past fears, just us. "I don't ever want to lose you," he murmured. "You won't," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. And then one final kiss, soft, deliberate, and full of all the unspoken words, all the longing, all the love that had built between us over a lifetime. It was a kiss that promised forever, sealed the slow burn of years, and finally brought us together. When we parted, I rested my head on his shoulder, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, utterly, and irrevocably home. Because Zayne Carter wasn't just my childhood friend, my protector, or the one who had nursed me through loss. He was my heart, my soul, my everything. And I was finally his.